Practical Tasks here, and I've got something to say about Smash Summit. Smash Summit Spring 2017 is around the corner, and as with the previous summits, we'll be seeing 16 Melee players duke it out at the Beyond the Summit studio in California, 10 of whom received direct invitations, and 6 who were voted on by the community. And as with previous summits, the voting period was highly contentious, primarily because the final round of voting involves fans making purchases or donations to be able to vote on their favorites' inclusion. The nominated players stream, offer perks, and sometimes do ridiculous challenges in their campaigns for votes, and some of the money raised goes towards the tournament prize pool. There are 2 different reasons why Melee fans are angry with the Summit voting system. One, if they wish Summit was strictly an invitational between the 16 best Melee players in the world at the time of the event, and 2, if they wish that the 6 most entertaining players available were the ones that made it to Summit. These people will argue wherever they can that certain players don't deserve to make it, and if a player makes it that they aren't a fan of and who isn't a top player, they'll probably scapegoat them, bring their name up in every Summit voting thread, and even hate on the people who voted for them. Unfortunately, these people fundamentally misunderstand the point of the Summit voting process. It's not to get the best people in. If that were the case, we wouldn't have a voting period at all. It's not to get the most entertaining people in. If that were the case, the voting period wouldn't have money involved. It's to get the people with the most rabid fan bases in. And shoutouts to New England because those guys are friggin' rabid. Let me explain why this is the case. Beyond the Summit started out as a Dota 2 studio, and they run similar summits for both Dota 2 and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Neither of these games have voting periods where fans have a say in which players get to go to the tournament. Instead, their lineups are a combination of direct invites and online qualifiers. At this point, you're probably saying, but Tass, shouldn't Melee's system be changed to be more like those of the other summits? To that I say no. Here's why. In case you've been living under a rock with your GameCube and CRT for the past 10 years, there are a few critical differences between the other Summit games and Melee. First off, Dota and CSGO are PC games, and if you can watch this video on a desktop computer, you could probably start downloading either game before this video is done, and play it with no additional hardware required. This lack of an entry barrier has contributed to these games' popularity, and both games boast millions of unique monthly users. That's a lot of potential eyeballs, and advertisers take note of that. The latest Dota Summit had big sponsors like DX Racer and Monster, not Weed Maps. No offense. Both games also have developer support and potential for in-game integration. For instance, an important part of the Dota Summits is the fact that spectators can purchase a ticket, which, if I understand it correctly, comes with a cosmetic skin for a character and increases the tournament's prize pool by a small amount. Melee, unfortunately, does not have accurate unique user statistics, a low barrier to entry, developer support, or in-game revenue streams. Therefore, Beyond the Summit needs to find other ways to fund Smash Summits. After all, they are a business, and tournaments cost money to run. The method they've come up with is community voting, which is the system that we've used for all the Smash Summits so far. The reason for that is, nothing in the Smash community brings in revenue like voting to get players to a tournament. You can see it in compendiums on tournaments on Smash GG. The fundraising goals that are most likely to succeed have consistently been those who promise to fly players out. The same is true for Summit, except there's a limited number of people that can be flown out, so only the top vote getters make it. And from the point of view of Beyond the Summit, the voting system has been wildly successful. It generates a ton of buzz about the tournament, supplies relatively monstrous prize pools for our top players to fight over, and perhaps most importantly, provides BTS with enough money to keep running these tournaments. After all, we wouldn't be on our 4th Smash Summit if the first 3 were money-losing ventures. Now, you might look at Smash GG and notice a line in the Smash Summit shop page, which says that the total amount purchased and donated comes out to $150,000, and think that that's a crazy amount of money for one tournament. However, you'll see that the number is less ridiculous than you first thought if you mouse over the question mark icon there and see the helpfully published breakdown. Of the total, $56,000 go to reward levels, including prize pool increases. $5,000 goes to PayPal and credit card fees. Another $56,000 goes to the fulfillment of shop items, which includes bulk purchasing Team Beer shirts and Smash GG hoodies. And only $33,000 ends up in the organizers' pockets. That's just over 20% of the total. With that 20%, they pay their staff, run the event, and maybe even make a little bit of profit at the end of the day. That's not at all unreasonable, all things considered, and might even be a little bit on the low side for the show they put on. This is not a problem. The main problem with the voting system is the amount of stress it puts on the nominees, which has been lightened recently because the voting's duration was shortened relative to that of previous summits. Also, we do have a better understanding of what the voting process looks like, so players who might not be willing to put up with campaigning have decided to opt out this time around. You might notice that I didn't mention the part where lower ranked or non-fan favorite players might make it to Summit. That's because the fact that infinite numbers got spirit bombed is not a problem. It's strictly a symptom of the fact that New England is united behind their players. They organized in their Facebook group, likely from as soon as they learned that infinite numbers was able to go to Summit, and drop their spirit bomb at the right time. And it's really that easy. All it takes is for one person to get the ball rolling. The optimal voting method this time around was $5 for 15 votes. Just get people to put in $5 each, and if they want to put in more, they could either throw it all in on one account, or make more efficient use of their money by making new accounts and putting $5 on each of those. What's not going to work is complaining on your platform of choice that your tournament is going to be ruined because the sum total of the SSBM ranks of all the attendees isn't going to be as small as mathematically possible. And don't even tell me that infinite numbers shouldn't have been eligible in the first place, because I know all of you were hyped for Cyrox. In all seriousness, though, the voting process isn't immune to criticism. One possible change that could decrease the stress of the nomination period by cutting a few days off the process would be to accept or eliminate players in groups of 3 instead of 2. You could start with 18 players that make it to the voting period, and then there would be 2 preliminary deadlines where the bottom 3 players are eliminated, followed by 2 final deadlines where the top 3 players are invited and the bottom 3 are eliminated. The primary trade-off of this would be a decrease in revenue, since the final day, which would be eliminated in this scheme, is quite lucrative for both Beyond the Summit and whoever wins the tournament. However, considering the fact that this summit had already broken the record for the largest prize pool in Melee history by the time the first of 3 rounds of summit invites went out, perhaps that's a trade-off that the BTS people might be willing to make in order to entice players to keep opting into the nomination process. But the important thing you need to know is that the voting system as a whole isn't going anywhere. We can argue the details, we can root for our favorites, and we can wait with bated breath as the deadlines hit to see whether or not they make it in. But for now, there is no Smash Summit without the Smash Summit voting period. Thanks for watching.